Chivalry 2. It's a game. Made by people with a perverted fascination with juicy human meat, and who think that setting one fucking toe near the edge of a flame is literally the same as descending into the jaws of hell. This game just came out of early access not that long ago, and I have to say, I wasn't excited. Like, at all. I played the original Chivalry a long time ago, and I didn't really like it all that much. But, for whatever reason, I saw Chiv 2 come out of early access, at a juicy discount at that, and thought, what the hell? If nothing else, it'll be something different. And different it was. I don't know if the game has simply improved so much over the original, or if my brain has finally evolved past the initial learning stage of just spamming left click until either my opponent or I are smitten, but there's just something about Chivalry 2 that makes combat feel so impactful. So what the hell is this game anyway? Chivalry 2 is a medieval multiplayer combat game. If you are unfamiliar with the series, then a much more recent example of a similar game would be Mordo. You get your standard game modes such as free-for-all and team deathmatch, the latter of which being host to some of the most broken horses in any game released within the past 2 decades. There is also the addition of the brawl mode, simulating the inevitable outcome that having dozens of drunken men in a 3 AM McDonald's is likely to produce. While these game modes can serve as a nice little warm-up, they do usually devolve into complete and utter shitfests.
Fucking 5 grown-ass men.
It is the team objective game mode where the real meat of the game is as far as most people are concerned. There is one more game mode worth mentioning, but that will get its own entire section later. In general, there are 2 types of objectives. You're either attacking, or you're French. However, one of Chivalry 2's biggest strengths is the large amount of variety it has when it comes to changing up what is essentially the same objectives over and over again. Oh. In other games, once published by Tripwire Interactive included, your objectives may include nothing more than simply capturing an area on the map. While this type of objective still does exist in Chivalry 2, it is also joined by a large number of others. For example, a lot of objectives require players to haul explosives to a point on the map, after which they have to defend the lit explosives until the bitter end. There are also endless amounts of siege scenarios, where the attackers have to escort equipment up to fortified positions, all while under the constant barrage of catapults and ballistas. And possibly the goofiest objective type, and probably my personal favorite, kidnapping pigs and peasants in the beginning of the raid on Aberfell. But to accomplish these objectives, you will, of course, need a weapon. That is where the class system comes in. There are 4 of them, and each also split up into 3 different loadouts. Let us begin with my absolute favorite, the Vanguard. These brutish specimen have the lowest health point value out of the 3 melee classes. However, that's not without its own saucy trade-off. The Vanguard wields some of the highest damage weapons in the game, including the starting battle axe as the Devastator. These junkies are quick, and very deadly if you let them get a hit. A big downside of the Devastator is that most of his weapons are quite limited in reach. This is something you can get used to, but either way, it's worth playing just to unlock the Raider. This loadout is fucked. You carry 2 primary weapons, the choices of which all have very good reach and very good damage. The ultimate strategy with this class is to throw your first weapon at the first unsuspecting victim you come across. After hopefully scoring a successful hit, you then finish him off and reclaim your weapon. Rinse and repeat until your inevitable death.
Oh, like a little 90-degree kick. Oh my fucking god.
10 out of 10. Goated class. Next we have the Footman. There's not a lot to say about this one. It's a decent class for low-level players purely because the poleman's weapons have a lot of reach, meaning you can quite often jab your enemies before they're even close enough to land a single hit. This does come at the cost of slow weapon swings, though thrusting is still quite quick. The one thing that makes the Footman a valuable class is that he has the medkit as a special ability, and it's the only one in the game that can also stack. Special abilities are only available in the large-scale team objective game modes though. The man-at-arms is probably the most useful out of the 3 variants thanks to his shield, and a lot of his weapons are also quite quick to swing, making for a pretty annoying class to have to deal with if played under the influence of legally prescribed methamphetamines. And the Field Engineer. It's a bit of a meme class. He starts out with a sledgehammer, which is a good weapon, but the items that he can put down like the spiked barricade and bear trap are usually nothing more than a slight inconvenience. 6 out of 10. Third, we have the Honorable Knight. They're beefy, heavy, and lovable. They have two purposes in life: to tank massive amounts of damage and to deal it all back with as few hits as possible. The Knights have evolved to utilize their sheer girth into a sprinting tackle that can knock unsuspecting victims down onto their bottom, leaving them open for a cheeky pokey. Although all the three variants have their own strengths and weaknesses, the Guardian is probably the most useful class in most scenarios. For one, he's shielded, meaning that he can tank even more hits than he already could. And if you level him up enough, you unlock the one-handed spear. This thing is fucked. It usually only does around 40 damage. However, its long reach combined with the shield turns this into one of the most annoying classes to fight in the whole game, especially in the arena game modes. Overall, an 8 out of 10.
That's alright.
I think there was one more class, but Okay, look. The archer in this game is actually a pretty skillful class based on one factor. Someone just turned the video off after they heard me say that, I fucking know it. There is zero generosity when it comes to enemy hitboxes. Hits with the archer require the player to become one with their mind palace, constantly adjusting for the slightest of changes in trajectory. On the other hand, friendly players' hitboxes take up something like twice the area of their fucking player model. I swear that most of the hits I get playing as an archer are on friendly units. People on the big 64-player lobbies complain all the time when there are archers that are actually getting kills, but honestly, those kills are earned. The archer class has 90 HP, meaning that a special attack from many of the heavier weapons can delete them with a single hit, and they have no way of blocking anything unless they slowly switch to their secondary dagger. I don't know, you can have like a 3 out of 10. But I've mostly been talking about this game within the context of the team objective game mode, but I've teased the arena game mode a couple times in this video so far, and it's inevitably going to lead me into the negatives of Chivalry 2. If you want the quick rundown, Chivalry 2 is a solid foundation for what will hopefully be an amazing game in the future. However, even though it's out of early access, it's not really finished, and it's probably not worth the full price they are asking for, unless you're content with what is already here. So let's talk about the arena mode. 3v3 arena has been some of the most fun I have had in a multiplayer game in a very long time. Part of it is probably because I haven't played a proper competitive game in a hot minute, the last one probably being Rainbow Six Siege. The archer class is disabled in the arena, and so are special abilities. It's just pure melee combat where the better players, who can be the first to win 5 rounds, win. It's a very simple concept, and yet, it can get very addictive. This is mostly down to the excellent fighting mechanics of Chivalry 2. The game is very reliant on you figuring out the playstyle of your opponent, and it's up to you to know how to best counter what he is doing. Does your opponent hold down block a lot after he attacks? Kick him out of the block and inflict some free damage. Does your opponent never block, opting in instead for swinging his weapon wildly like an absolute ape? Give him a good old slap on the head, stopping his current weapon swing. All of these concepts are actually explained really well in the game's tutorial, which can be completed within around 10 minutes, after which you can play PvE modes against bots to hone your skills if that is what you desire. The arena is the perfect game mode to really get humbled and to see what playstyles work for you. However, there are problems. Pretty big ones too, that I think are keeping more players from trying it out. The arena feels half-baked for two main reasons. The first being a lack of proper matchmaking. We've had nights where we played game after game after game where we've come across nothing but complete beginners who don't know how to play the game properly. We've also had nights where we've come across nothing but level 300 plus brutes who could single-handedly demolish us while the other two randoms he got paired with just sat there and watched. And once the match finally ended, we would always be put up against the exact same team, sometimes up to 4 or 5 times in a row. Now, I realize that the arena game mode is not claiming to be any sort of competitive game mode like the type you can get in CSGO and Siege, but the point I'm trying to make is that it could be. Like, sure, you can jump into a casual game in CS and be put up against global elites, but when you actually want to take the game a little bit more seriously, there is a competitive game mode available in that game. I could see the arena get expanded into a new competitive category one day, but right now, it doesn't really offer enough to be inviting to new players, which is a real shame. Not to mention the second big problem with the arena. The experience that you earn doesn't scale up from what it normally is in team objectives. Experience points are pretty well balanced in the bigger game modes. I feel like you unlock new classes and weapons at a nice rate that feels rewarding. But what if you are a Chad that only wishes to play in the arena? Well, you're shit out of luck. Even if you're a god gamer, you're usually not going to be getting more than about 15 kills, which, considering you don't have any other ways to earn XP like you do in other game modes, and that you earn the exact same amount of points for kills here as you would otherwise, seems like a really baffling choice. XP earned in the arena needs to be scaled up from the default value to give more players a reason to actually play it. There's a really good game mode in here somewhere, but it just needs a little bit more development. But I am not done with shitting on the game. Not even close. There is jank. And quite a lot of it, which, considering this game is now fully out of early access, really needs to be pointed out. Do you like cosmetic buttons? Try joining in a server your friends are playing on. Would you like to leave a game with your party to go find another server? Can't do that either. You all have to leave individually and rejoin the party. The game crashed my kernel once. That was cool. Couldn't restart until I reset my computer. On maps with mounted units, there's no way to opt in or out of respawning on a horse. Sometimes after you die, you just spawn on a horse, and you just have to deal with it. A section on horses in general. Some maps just shouldn't have them, or the amount that spawn should be reduced. Like, how the fuck are 5 mounted units per side acceptable on this narrow bridge section? I love being swept off my feet every 5 fucking seconds by friendly horses. Choosing the Masons faction at the end of the tutorial plays a cutscene explaining the backstory of Agatha, confusing me into thinking I pressed the wrong button. The best part is that this choice doesn't even matter. The bot battle that starts after this forces you to play as Agatha anyway.
Blue as the sky where the gods guard.
I beg your pardon?
Sometimes the game doesn't register inputs properly. I think this is just an inherent problem with multiplayer games in general, and it's probably not fair to bring it up. But sometimes I'll do something like a quick last-second block where I even see the icon pop up in the middle of the screen, and I'll just take damage anyway, which can get really frustrating sometimes. I've also missed melee swings that I don't think I really should have. Meanwhile, some enemy knight that has his back turned to me will hit me with a random swing or block my attack with, I guess, just his fucking fan ass or something, I don't know. At the very least, they have their premium currency and microtransactions for cosmetics set up. 2022 gaming, everyone. Can we get a fucking... yeah. And that is Chivalry 2. It's the perfect game to just turn your brain off to and to go full ape mode, bashing in skulls and slicing limbs. There's also enough depth in the fighting mechanics to separate the sweats from the babes, if you will. But the game clearly has more potential, and I hope that it keeps being developed. If you are not yet convinced, then check back on the game in like a year or so. 2 things I would like to see added are a fleshed out competitive game mode and workshop support. Your first game had it. I've been Scav Merchant Hub, and I just pillaged your village. See ya!
I want you to subscribe to me
Scav Merchant Hub.
on YouTube. Thank you, cringe. Bye.